Hey, 7th graders, Mr. Al again with another one of your flip lessons. Tonight we're going to be working on our another two cultural regions. We're going to be looking at the Plateau and Great Basin cultural regions. So you should have this sheet. Actually, it should already probably be in your interactive notebook on, let's say, page 23. Just had to check the board really quickly on that. So same thing as we did last time. Go through, fill out all the geographic features, food sources, homes, clothing, tools, and then we're going to do the summary later. We did work on the summary in class, so if you want to work on it at home, because you kind of know what we're supposed to be doing on that, feel free. But here we go. Let's get going. Get out of that for a minute. Go down to the corner. Try to find a spot. Let's go up here. All right, so the Great Basin geographical features. All right, we'll go down here so we can see. This is number one. So we're going to be down the right hand of your Great Basin chart here. This is desert region, so it's very, very dry. And today this area is like present day Wyoming, present day present day Utah, present day kind of parts of California, parts of northern Arizona, Colorado. Very, very dry. Because it's very, very dry, there's very little vegetation. You're going to see a lot of what are called low grasses that grow very, very low to the ground. All right, the only type of trees you're going to see is kind of these things called pinyon trees, which are very, very short trees, almost kind of look like thorny, spiny, but not a lot of wood vegetation that you could rely on. Because of this, most of the people in this area are going to be hunter-gatherers, meaning there's just not going to be any available time for farming. It's very, very dry. There's not good soil, so people are either going to hunt or they're going to gather food. So what are these food sources going to be? I'm right in the middle of some. Is going to be kind of whatever they can find. So a big one is throughout these areas you're going to see kind of floodwaters, some main rivers, so you're going to be hunting ducks and collecting eggs. You're also going to be relying on plants, berries, and even cattails. I know most people say, oh, how can you eat a cattail? You can. It's not probably the tastiest thing in the world, but it's full of a lot of available nutrients, and it was what Native American groups of the Great Basin kind of relied on if all else failed. You're not going to have a lot of big time hunting animals here, not a lot of deer or anything like that. Mostly going to be snakes and other lizards, reptiles, things like that. Grasshoppers and jackrabbits are going to be the basis of any of your meat diet. Great Basin homes. And there we are. Let me get out of the way here. Are going to be movable shelters, right? They're hunter-gatherers, so they're not going to build something that is going to stay on the ground that long. All right, they got to be able to move. They got to be able to go from place to place in case their water source runs out or they've depleted a food source or whatever. They're going to be cone-shaped. They're going to be made of reeds and brush, pretty much anything that they can find. We're not going to have the cedar plank houses that we talked about with Pacific Northwest, simply because they don't have those available natural resources in this environment. Great Basin clothing. You're going to see some rabbit fur robes, particularly in the winter. It will get cold in the Great Basin, particularly in those higher elevations and particularly in winter. But most of the clothing you're going to see is going to be plant-based, using those reeds and things like that to try to make the garments that you see at the top. The rabbit furs and things like that are going to be mostly used to keep warm during the winter months. Tools, you're going to see a lot of baskets, again, made out of reeds because that's what they have available. You're going to have what are called seed beaters, where you can kind of use those to kind of sift out different materials so you have kind of the seeds left over. You're going to have nets and decoys and things like that to catch ducks. You also see kind of an example of one in that top corner. The animal, they use those for fish as well, gets inside. The hole is small enough for them to get in, but not so small that they can get back out the way it's configured on the inside. So a lot of their tools, again, are going to be used from the natural resources they have available in their environment to catch the things that they have available in their environment. Plateau region is going to be a little bit farther north and is actually, you may not think about this, you go north, typically things get colder, things get nastier. Compared to the Great Basin, the Plateau is going to be a little bit easier to live in for a variety of different reasons. and we'll kind of talk about that in the flip lesson. So first of all, you're going to have a little bit more forest, some more mountains. It's still going to be relatively dry, as you can see, sort of desert-like, but a little bit more grasses, a little bit more sagebrush. But what you're really going to have in this plateau region is going to be kind of two big-time major rivers, which is going to be very, very helpful for the Native American groups living there. All right, plateau food sources. A lot of things that you've seen in other groups because of those two main rivers. Salmon is going to be a big part of their diet. Antelope and deer are going to be very plentiful. Onions and carrots are going to grow wild in these areas. One of the present day areas that is within the plateau region is Idaho, and if you have Idaho potatoes, anything that very rich soil, any kind of root vegetable grows really, really well there, and they pretty much grew wild during this time period. But the big food source that the plateau region relied on is going to be what is called the CAMAS, and they're going to be up in that right-hand corner, and they're kind of like a potato, but they're not grown like a potato. It looks like, actually, when they're growing in the ground, it looks like a flower. And so what you eat from the CAMAS is going to be the root. It's very, very starchy. It's very, very fibrous, which is going to be very, very helpful for the diet to give, just in case there's not meat. It's still a hearty vegetable that can provide a lot of nutrients. So this was going to be a staple of any Native American group that lived in the plateau region. When in doubt, they always had CAMAS that they could eat that would provide the nutrition that they would need. The plateau region had what were called pit houses, and this is going to be a adaptation to the weather that they faced. The plateau region is going to be pretty warm during the summer, and then very, very cold during the winter. So the pit house is going to kind of act like your basement. If you've ever been kind of in your basement during the summer months, your basement's going to be really, really cold. All right, because the cold air is going to be trapped down there. But during the winter months, your basement's going to be kind of one of the first things that kind of heats up as well. So half the house is going to be underground, and you can kind of see where you see like that. It's kind of like having a basement with one floor with that floor taken out. They're basically going to build it up off the ground, the roof and structure like that, and they're going to cover it with whatever they can find. It may be reeds, it may be mud, it could be driftwood, it could be sagebrush, whatever they can find to kind of insulate their families from the elements. Plateau clothing, they're going to be relying mostly on animal hide clothing. They do have available deer and antelope and things like that to make buckskin clothing. Every once in a while, you'll see a bear robe and things like that for the winter months. They're going to also have time to decorate them. We saw a lot of plateau clothing decorated with shells and seeds. Again, they're by the river, which can provide them with those decorations. Tools, you're going to see some reed baskets, much like the Great Basin folks, and they're going to be used to keep their CAMAS in, keep their seeds, keep anything that they're using. You're going to see nets and spears like the one you see above, that is going to be used for spearing of salmon and any other type of fish that they may find in the river systems. And then you're going to see digging sticks used to dig up those wild carrots, wild onions, wild CAMAS. All right, that's going to end it for this flip lesson. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me a line on Schoology. If you want, we talked about in class with your summary. Either you're doing a Twitter summary, so you got to summarize the area in 143 characters or less, or you're doing a picture summary. All right. So if you do one, if you do the plateau region in Twitter, you have to do the Great Basin in a picture, and vice versa. So you can't do both for each one. All right. See you later.